What is going on, everyone? And in this video, I'll be giving you my UFC Vegas 51 main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday, April 16, 2022. Luque versus Muhammad 2. Should be a great main event. Could be a quick main event. And I think the rest of the card, we got some Dana White Contender Series fighters on this card. Pat Sabatini. It's an okay card, I would say. I'm expecting some knockouts, some submissions, but that main event's going to be really good. We're going to really get to see if Muhammad is able to do more than he did, was it like 6 years ago in their last fight. So obviously Luque is pretty beastly, so that was pretty, it's gonna be a pretty good fight. Coming off the last card, which I did pretty good at, also went to that fight card. It was crazy with Hamzat Chimaev and Gilbert Burns. That was a crazy fight to watch live. 10-2, so that was pretty good. Yeah, definitely did well that card. Really glad about that. Unfortunately for Tecia Torres, man, I really think she could have won that fight, but Dern was just able to grapple a little bit more. Peter Yan, I don't know, split decision, whatever. I could see them fighting again. I definitely don't think Yan's done. Maybe he needed to do a little bit more, I guess you could say, but yeah, it was still a close fight. It's not like Sterling beat his ass or anything like that. And then obviously Alexander Volkanovski getting the win there, and that was pretty beastly to watch because just dominant. We'll have to see where he goes from there. But let's go into this card, and we'll talk about it back in the UFC Apex. So it's going to be a small octagon. So we're going to get to see what happens with that. And actually, maybe there will be more finishes and stuff because I think with the smaller octagon, there's not too much running around and all that. So we'll get into the main card. So in the first fight on the main card, we have Mounir, the sniper Lazzez, taking on Ange, Loosa. 10-2 for Lazzez, 8-2 for Loosa, and this fight will be taking place in the middleweight division. This is a short notice fight, so that's going to be, the number one thing to think about that is just they weren't obviously training for each other. You're bringing in a guy in here, I think it's like on a week's notice or whatever, so you're going to get that randomness to this fight. You're going to kind of see it. Maybe Ange is able to do something just because he's coming out of a fight and he's just ready to go, right? Whereas Lazzez, but I wouldn't count out Lazzez. I think he's actually pretty good. I mean, this last fight, unfortunately, he lost against Borralho Alves, round 1 TKO via kick. That was just an unfortunate loss. I wouldn't say that he's, he just got caught, I guess you could say, because he has decent striking. He throws a lot of pretty good leg kicks. He'll throw a head kick up there too. He does pick his shots, so he's not necessarily a brawler, right? He's very calm. He's not gonna just run out there and try to tee off on someone. Even when he's going for that finish, it doesn't look too sloppy. I think Lazzez is gonna have we'll have to see, right? I guess because he can definitely wrestle. His defense is a little bit questionable. I would say too, he fights a little bit reserved, but he plays it safe, right? He's not gonna go out there and get crazy with it. And then, I think against Borralho Alves or whatever, he was backing up a little bit too much. And against someone who's going to be really aggressive, it's not good for him to be sitting back like that. For Ange Loosa, so 8-2, like I said, coming off a win over, an ex-UFC fighter, John Howard. He lost that fight via decision. For Loosa, in that fight, he had pretty good wrestling. He was kind of looking for that the entire fight, and then when he got the when he got the takedown, he was able to control pretty solid leg kicks, good head kicks. I would say his punches come in like little spurts that he tries, and then he tries to follow through with the takedowns. So, again, not nothing crazy I saw out of him. I would say probably, he tries to close that distance with his striking to get the takedowns. He's not diving in for takedowns, so he at least tries to set him up a little bit better than most. Good cardio. Probably, I would say good cardio. And then, obviously for Loosa, he's taking this fight on short notice. So, it's one of these fights where Lazzez, I would say he's pretty decent, man. But at the same time for Loosa, I think Loosa might have his moments, right? But I think if Lazzez is able to defend takedowns and, play this fight a little bit safer than he did against Borralho Alves, pick the better shots, he might be able to pull off a decision here. I think Loosa was not. I don't see him getting finished or anything like that. I think he's gonna be pretty tough. Actually, I think he's gonna come in here. He just fought, so he's pretty fresh off that. It's a great opportunity for him. So he's gonna come into this fight with a lot of not a lot of hype, but just a lot of confidence, I would say, and this is an opportunity to do this. So we're gonna have to see what we're gonna get from him. But I'm not gonna pick a guy on short notice. unless it was like, blatantly off. Like he's been waiting to get in the UFC and he's been knocking dudes out left and right. Because John Howard, obviously, yes, he was in the UFC, but there's a reason why he's not in the UFC anymore. So I'm gonna go Mounir Lazzez. I think he plays his fight safe. It being on short notice, he doesn't want to go out there and get absolutely rocked by some guy who's fighting him on a week's notice. So maybe use some wrestling. Just stay in there, pick the better shots, and then over the course of 3 rounds, get a good decision in there. So I'm gonna go Mounir Lazzez to defeat Ange Loosa. I'll take him to win by decision. And then move on into the second fight on the main card, and we have a lightweight bout between Pat Sabatini, and then we have him taking on TJ Laramie. Actually, not a lightweight bout. It's a featherweight bout. So yeah, Pat Sabatini coming in this fight with a 16-3 record, coming off a win over Tucker Lutz via decision, round 2 submission. So that's pretty good. Good wrestling and control. He's definitely one of these guys too, where he wants to get that takedown. He wants to control you. I would say he looks for some. He can definitely submit people. We saw it in his last fight, obviously, but just throughout his fights, he definitely does try to work to get some sort of, if not the submission, some sort of advantageous position. So he's not going to just sit on you and not do anything. He's definitely working. Good cardio, but you're going to need good cardio to do all that. So he's not really worried about his cardio. Striking on the feet probably is going to be his weak point, which could be a concern here if he decides to trade with Laramie, because I could see Laramie going in there and start to throw some bombs. And then, yeah, obviously because he's trying to grapple, I think Sabatini, his volume's low. So he's not one of these guys where I don't think he wants to trade. And then especially against a guy like Laramie. For Laramie, 12-4, coming off a loss over Derek Minor via submission to round number 1. A little bit too much for him right there. I don't know if he just got a little bit too excited. He went for the takedown and then just got caught with that. I believe it was a guillotine. And yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the fight. Like, he really didn't have to show anything else there, which was kind of unfortunate for him. He also is a wrestler. Maybe he tries to do that. Maybe he doesn't, just because, he goes in for a takedown and then Sabatini is able to pull off something, and then he loses the fight the same exact way. That would be unfortunate for him. So I would say for Laramie, I think maybe early on he's going to try to keep this fight standing. Good cross punches. I watched one of his fights, so he has gone 5 rounds, so I'm not really concerned about his cardio. I don't know if he's going to be as active as Sabatini, but I do think he can pack a punch. So I think early on he might try to throw down instead of going in for a takedown. So he's a young fighter, obviously, so he still has a lot to learn. Sabatini's pretty good, so this is going to be a really good test for him, again, just like Derek Meyer was. And I think he needs to, I mean, the blatant thing here is I don't see Laramie going in for takedowns, because one, Sabatini's known for getting those takedowns. He's known for getting control, and I don't think he risks that, at least early on. So I don't see Laramie going in for takedowns. And so I see early on Laramie trying to land some pretty big shots on Sabatini, and obviously Sabatini's going to try to defend that and go in for the takedowns and then get that control and probably try to take him into that second, third round and try to drown him out and possibly go for a submission, and we'll have to see if he's able to get it. I'm leaning Sabatini just because obviously a little bit more experience, and he's been in the UFC, he's been getting good wins, and he's one of these guys where his striking isn't necessarily, like, I don't really think of him for his striking. But, hopefully he's improving, and hopefully he can do a little bit better on the feet against a guy like this. And if not, hopefully he can get that takedown and just show why he's able to control him on the floor. So with that being said, I'm going to have to go with Sabatini on this one. I just feel a little bit more confident with his grappling than I do with Laramie landing like a big shot or something like that. And then also like Laramie like going in for a takedown or something, and then Sabatini is able to get like a submission victory. So I think he might have a little bit more way to win here. So I'm going to go past Sabatini on this one. I think if he can take the younger fighter into the second and third round, I think he can pull off a submission here. So I'm going to go Pat Sabatini to defeat TJ Laramie. I'll take him to win by submission in round number 2. Move on into the third fight on the main card, and we have Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Yanan. Now this is a classic fight where it's just sketch. Right, and I mean that in the sense, like, you could go with either fighter and they will literally either just both not show up, or one's gonna show up a lot more, and it still will go to a decision though, I think. And just kind of low level, both are coming off some losses. and you know, they really haven't fought like top level competition or anything like that. So for Silva, she's coming into this fight with a loss against Manon Fiorot via unanimous decision, 7-2. I believe that's one draw. In that fight, she just kind of had, I mean, she was getting hit and doing the whole classic, like, oh, you didn't do anything to me, but she wasn't doing anything. So it was kind of, you know, okay, like, you're getting hit and you're not, and you're saying like, oh, you didn't hurt me, but you're not doing anything. So that was kind of weird. I don't really like when fighters do that. And then she just wasn't able to deal with the movement really of Fiorot in that fight, and she was just not able to hang with her, because I mean, she's more of like that in close Muay Thai kind of style, right? She's trying to definitely grapple. She's not going for takedowns or anything like that. But if she can't close that distance and start landing shots, she's just not really doing too much. She does go forward, you know, obviously, because she needs to. That's how she's gonna win the fight, right? Is if you close that distance and start landing some good shots in close. Her striking too isn't necessarily the best. I think if she tightens that up a little bit more, and she does absorb more strikes than she does land, so that's a little concerning. Probably because the distance fighting is not where she shines. So, you know, if a fighter's able to get in and out, pop a shot, and then move out, she's not really able to hang with them. And in this fight against someone like Yanan, maybe Silva's the one. Maybe Silva goes for a takedown, but I hardly doubt it. Yanan probably will be the one trying to get the takedown, especially if she's getting a little bit pieced up on the feet. Now, for Yanan, another, you know, just as much as Silva, not really top level competition here. So she's 12-4, coming off a loss against Jocelyn Edwards via unanimous decision. Again, a fight where, you know, she was trying to get that fight to the ground. Her striking really didn't look too good. She bounces around a lot, a decent striker, but she was not really able to do anything on the feet. The striking was also kind of not clean, so she needs to clean that up. And then, honestly, I think just try to grind this fight out if she can get a takedown or something. But I do think Silva's just going to have the better striking in close. And, you know, if Yanan's not able to control it on the floor, I don't really know what's going to happen on the feet for her. So I think Silva wins the fight if it keeps on the feet, and then Yanan wins the fight if she's able to constantly get takedowns, because I just don't see her like doing too much on the feet. So yeah, I mean, either fighter can win this fight via decision, and I honestly don't think it's going to be, you know, it's not going to be one of the greatest decisions we've ever seen, right? It's probably not going to be the greatest fight we've ever seen, but I'm leaning towards Silva just because I think her striking, at least in close, will be a lot better than the distance that Yanan tries to keep. And then I'm also not too sure Yanan can like take her down consistently and just grind her out for a decision. So yeah, I mean, it's a sketchy fight, honestly, and it's probably not going to be the most exciting fight. So I'm going to go Mayra Bueno Silva to defeat Yanan. I'll take the win by a decision. And move on into the fourth fight on the main card, and we have Miguel Baeza taking on Andre Belal. 10-2 for Baeza, for Miguel, and then 14-4 for Andre. 1 no contest. Baeza, I think in the beginning when we first started seeing him fight, he was doing a lot better. I think he's pretty jacked, right? So he's pretty ripped. You're like, okay, this guy's pretty good. He does have really good heavy counters. He can definitely get a submission here and there. Good calf kicks, good jab. But, you know, in his previous couple fights, he's kind of not done the smartest thing, and he gets into these wild exchanges with guys where you can't be getting into those wild exchanges with. So against Chaos Williams, you know, he gets knocked out in round 3, KO TKO. Again, just gets into a wild exchange, and then Williams is able to get him. I think he needs to fight a little bit more smart, right? So you're not gonna try to brawl with a dude that like is landing, you know, equally heavy shots in close. It's just not the smart thing to do. You need to do more of, you know, and he can countering off those calf kicks too against Chaos Williams, and against a guy who's gonna just land bombs on you. You know, countering off that calf kick is just, that's what's gonna happen. So you don't really want to do that. So for this fight against someone like Andre, who's gonna come in here with, you know, he lost his last fight against Michel Pereira via decision. But I will say, man, early on, before he started getting just overwhelmed with the variety of striking and the craziness of Pereira, he was definitely, I think, winning that fight. Really nasty shots in close, really great boxing, very technical, very precise with his striking as well. He's definitely not a brawler. He's definitely not sloppy. But he really strides with that one thing. So with the boxing, so obviously as a boxer, he's keeping the hands a little bit too high, so he's open to the kicks, and we saw that against Pereira. But at the same time, against a guy like Baeza, I can see him going for, the leg kicks, going for calf kicks, going to the body, and trying to do a lot more of that. But that being said, man, for Andre, if he can close the distance and he can get Baeza to do exactly what he did with like Chaos Williams, for example, and get to a wild exchange, I can definitely see Andre Fialho taking him out. And taking him out pretty brutally too. So I'm interested in seeing what happens here. And I don't think Baeza, he's not gonna be like Pereira, right? He's not a crazy kind of guy like that. He's not constantly in your face throwing these weird strikes, going to the body, going to the legs, going to the, he's not doing all that. I mean, if anything, he might be backing up in this fight. So I think Andre, if he can close that distance, and Andre might fight a little bit smarter in this one, right? Because he's like, oh shit, I need to do a little bit more than just box, right? My boxing is pretty good, but if I can't get him out of there, if I can't get my hands on him, I'm not gonna be able to win the fight. So Baeza, we've seen him been dropped, we've seen him been knocked out. Andre is pretty tough, man. Pretty tough. Lost the fight via decision. Ate some pretty big shots throughout that fight, and he was still able to keep going. And lost against a pretty crazy guy. So I like Andre Fialho in this one. I just think his boxing, if he makes some more improvements, if he mixes up his game a little bit better, not really worried about striking, I think he can get into a wild exchange. But maybe not wild for him, but wild for Baeza, and then just crack him, man. I think if he cracks him, I think he puts him down. The first round might be a little bit of a feel out, but I'm going to go Andre Fialho to defeat Miguel Baeza. I'll take a win in round 2 by KO, TKO. Move on into the co-main event of the evening. And this should be a pretty good fight, Dana White Contender Series fight. Pretty good guys on the Dana White Contender Series as well. Middleweight bout between Caio Borralho taking on Omargadzhiev. For Caio, he's coming in with 10-1, 1 no contest. For Gadzi, he's coming in with a 13-0 record. Classic Russian coming in here with, what he's gonna give. He's gonna give that strong sambo background, that grappling. He's coming off a win over Janzi Silva via round 1 sub. It was a knee bar. So we know he can grind. We know he can get a submission if he's able to, stay on top of you and he starts working, control, classic stuff. But I think his striking is not the best. And in a fight like this against someone who, because I think Caio Borralho, I think he can definitely wrestle. And then I also think, with that karate style, he has pretty good blitzing, good left hand. We saw that in his fight against Jesse Murray, where he won round 1 KO TKO. I think in the fight before that on Dana White Contender Series, he kind of had a grindy fight, and it was not the best fight. But then in this fight, he gets the contract because he's able to get that finish, and he looks a lot better, right? So he can do both, I think, and that's just the biggest thing here. I think if Borralho can shake things up early on, and then you have Gadzi going in because he's like, oh shit, I don't want to be up here with this dude. And then Borralho's able to defend anything. I think he's gonna defend the takedown, and then he's gonna be able to start piecing him up, because I just don't have faith in, from what I've seen at least, right, his fights, Omargadzhiev, in his striking on the feet in comparison to Caio Borralho. So for me, I like Caio to defend at least one takedown and then start going to work on the feet. And I think that's when you start to see Gadzi go, oh shit, what am I doing? And then that's when he's going to be in a little bit of trouble. And I think this kind of gets decided early on, right? I don't think it's one of these things where it's a stalemate. I think we're really going to get to see if Caio can defend the takedown early on, and then we're going to see his striking, and then Gadzi's going to be in a little bit of trouble. Now, that being said, if Caio's not able to defend takedowns, I think maybe we get a classic, Russian Gadzi, Omargadzhiev, taking him down, smashing him out, maybe getting a submission. But I'm interested in seeing Caio Borralho's submission defense, but also his takedown defense, and then him trying to tee off on the feet. I think that's going to be pretty important in this one. So I think it gets figured out in that first round. So I'm going to go Caio Borralho to defeat Gadzi Omargadzhiev. I'll take him to win by round 1, KO TKO. Let's move on into the main event of the evening, and we have Vicente Luque taking on Belal Muhammad. 21-7 for Luque. 20-3 and 1 no contest for Muhammad, 1 draw for Luque. So this is gonna be a rematch. I think it was 6 years ago. Let me see. 6 years. pretty long time ago. Yeah, 2016. Yeah, so 2016, he defeated Belal Muhammad in round 1 via KO. So that was pretty nasty. In that fight, it was just obvious that Luque's striking was just far better, and I'm not too sure that it's still not far much better. And I think it's just far better, I think, than Belal Muhammad's. I think Muhammad's gotten better, but I still think he uses a lot of his striking to close that distance, to get into the clinch, to get the takedown. And he'll really drive for the takedown too, right? He's pretty determined on getting those takedowns. I think both guys have pretty good skills as far as, in their respectiveness. But I will say Luque, we saw in his last fight against Michael Chiesa, where he won that fight via submission round number 1, where he's literally getting choked out. And then next thing you know, he switches the position up and then he's able to choke out Michael Chiesa. That he's hittable. This guy Luque, he'll go in there and he'll bank everything on his chin, and maybe that's not the best thing to do against some guys, but I don't think Muhammad's gonna knock him out. I think still Luque's gonna have the better striking. He has a little bit more volume. He does get hit more, but he's pretty aggressive. 64% takedown defense. I don't think Luque's taking Muhammad down, maybe. But I don't think he's going to look for that. I think he's going to look to close distance. I think he's going to look to get into one of those exchanges again and just start ripping, shots to his head. And that's just not going to be good for Muhammad. So for me, Muhammad has to close that distance, work his game, stay away from the striking, get those takedowns, control them, but also at the same time, watch out for getting reversed, watch out for getting submitted somehow. I think Muhammad has to do a lot more to win this fight than Luque. And then I think maybe in the back of his mind, too, Muhammad's going to be like, I did get knocked out by this guy, right? So granted, it was 6 years ago, and I'm a lot better. He's different, whatever. But I think that's still going to be fresh in his mind, at least when they're fighting, as far as, watching out a little bit more. He's not going to be rushing in there and trying to. I don't think he's going to be wanting to exchange with Luque, at least early on. I think he's going to try to fight smart. And it might not necessarily be the best fight if he wins, because he might win a decision or something like that. But man, Luque is gonna go in there and try to crack him. And man, I there's another fight that I think if it gets you figure that out in the first and second round. I don't really see a decision here. And too, if Luque gets, not that I've seen Luque gas out. I mean, I guess we kind of saw it against Tyron Woodley, but that was because Woodley was able to land some shots on him. But eventually, Luque put him away. I don't see this going to like a 5-round decision. I really don't. I think one of these guys gets a. Well, I guess it goes to a decision if Muhammad wins, but I think if Luque wins, it's round 1 or 2, and I think he tries to put him away. He's a finisher, man. Whether it's via submission, whether it's via KO, TKO. Yeah. I think he's gonna be aggressive. He's gonna throw some nasty shots in close. Great hand speed, leg kicks. And he's dangerous, man. It's not like you want to be shooting in on him and just go, taking him down, because I think Luque can pull off a defensive submission. And for Muhammad, he has to do a lot more. He has to fight very technical. He has to be a little bit close of the early on of the striking of Luque. And he's going to have to get those takedowns consistently. He's going to have to drown him out. And that's a lot to ask for. So I'm not really confident in Muhammad here. So I'm going to go Vicente Luque in this one. I think he wins this fight, and when he does, I think he does it pretty violently as well. So, unless Luque gets knocked out, right, or something crazy, but I think if he fights the way he fights, I think he's gonna cause some issues for Muhammad again. So, I'm gonna go Vicente Luque, and maybe instead of the first round, right, we get out of that because Muhammad's trying to play it safe. He's not trying to do anything. He's not gonna try to exchange with him in close, and he's gonna probably fight a little bit smarter. So I'm expecting to go in the second round. And then in the second round, I think Luque catches him again and just pours it on him. And he's able to take him out of there. Kind of like how he did in the first fight. Maybe not as viciously. Maybe not as crazy as that. But I do think he still gets him out there. So I'm going to go Vicente Luque. And then the other thing too is, Muhammad beat Stephen Thompson because Stephen Thompson, he wasn't going to wrestle with him. He wasn't going to defend the takedowns. It's not, Thompson doesn't fight like that. When it's striker versus striker, Thompson's hard to beat. But if you can grapple him, like we saw with Gilbert Burns as well, Thompson's not going to be able to do too much. Muhammad beat Damian Maia. That fight was kind of boring, not really too much. You know, Muhammad defended the takedowns, and then just Muhammad was the better striker on the feet. No contest against Leon Edwards, but he was getting his ass beat. I think he would have just gotten destroyed. Beat Diego Lima, but like at this point, who's not beating Diego Lima? Lyman good. Not too crazy for him, but he's gonna have to do a lot in this fight. So I'm gonna go Vicente Luque. I think he's gonna be, you know, if not a champion, definitely fighting for the championship soon. Fighting top level guys. So I'm going to go Vicente Luque to defeat Belal Muhammad. I'll take him to win by round 2 KO TKO. So that'll do it, guys, for my UFC fight night. UFC Vegas 51 predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday. Everybody have a good Easter. Everybody do what you got to do. Have fun watching this card. Hope you have fun watching this card. Leave a comment down below. Tell me who you are picking. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. And I'll see you guys in the next video.